So I've actually noticed that there's a lot of talk going around that people actually want remasters of the Final Fantasy XIII Trilogy. But is this really a good idea? So in this video I'll be going through all of that and why it is actually a very bad idea to actually remaster these games. However, I actually think that remaking these games is actually a better idea. Let me explain why. When Final Fantasy XIII was first in development, it actually fell under development hell. The reason being is that this game was originally being designed for the PS2. Now at the time what happened is that the PS3 was announced and the developers obviously didn't have the time to release it on PS2. So it actually became a PS3 game. And if you guys don't know, is that the PS3 is actually a console that's very hard to make games for. So what ended up happening at Square Enix is that not only were they working on Final Fantasy XIII, but they actually had to learn the PS3's hardware and the way it worked. They had to do that at the same time as developing the game as well. And not only that, of course, it also came out on the Xbox. So the game fell under development hell. And basically what ended up happening is that a lot of its content was actually cut from the game. And that is actually why the game turned out to be so linear. If you've played the game, you know. But if you haven't, basically you just go from point A to point B and you're stuck on the path. You can't turn into anything really. You're just following the path out and that's it. Sometimes here and there, you might be able to go off the path a little bit, but it's only to get a treasure chest or to work out a puzzle and that's it. There's no exploration in this game at all. It's basically an RPG game that's basically you're just following the road. You can't get off the road. Like even the battle system was bad. Like literally you're just pressing X the whole time because literally the first option you have is literally auto battle. So it auto selects your spells and auto selects everything for you. It does everything for you. You just need to keep pressing X and you gotta make sure that you're at the right level when you're fighting a boss. That's it. Like if you've actually played this game, the gameplay is pretty bad, but here's the thing, the story and the characters is actually pretty good. They're pretty decent. It's a decent story and the characters are likable enough, but it's the gameplay that drags the game down. It holds the game back from being something really good. Like I actually remember at the time, like when people, after they played this game, people were like very upset about this game. Like how they were saying, how could Square Enix make a game like this? This game is terrible. The worst Final Fantasy game ever made, they were saying, I remember. Now, in my personal opinion, I think Final Fantasy XII was worse, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, I do remember people complaining about Final Fantasy XIII, like people making YouTube, like videos on YouTube. They were really complaining about this game. Now, the thing is that at the time, what was announced was Final Fantasy XIII was supposed to be part of a trilogy, and the games that was supposed to follow was Final Fantasy XIII Type 0, and the other one was Final Fantasy Versus 13. But what ended up happening is that because the game was so disliked by fans, they actually dismantled the whole trilogy, which I believe it was called the Crystallis trilogy. So what ended up happening is that Type 0 became a PSP game or a PS Vita game. I can't remember which one it came out. And Versus 13, that was basically rebooted or completely dismantled and remade into Final Fantasy 15. Yeah, so yeah, which happened many years down the line. So yeah, the whole situation became a mess. So what happened is that about 2 years later, Square Enix announces Final Fantasy XIII 2 at E3. And which basically took everybody by surprise. And they announced that you'll be playing as Lightning's sister, and it's a direct sequel to Final Fantasy XIII. And I remember everybody wondering is that why would they make a game that everybody disliked? And I remember that there was a theory going around at the time is that maybe because they know they messed up with Final Fantasy XIII, so they want to fix it with 13 too. That's what people were thinking back then. So when Final Fantasy XIII 2 came out, is that what they did with the game, what Square Enix did with the game, basically they took the gameplay from the original game and they expanded upon it. Basically they added more exploration and the combat system is more fluid than the previous one. But still, the gameplay was not that good. Like it was still lackluster, like it was missing something. Like it didn't even live up to the Final Fantasy brand anymore. The game, the way they were doing the gameplay. And once again, when it came to the story and characters, the story's pretty good and the characters are likable. There's no real problem with the story, but the gameplay once again dragged it down. The gameplay was better than 13's though, but it's still lackluster, still holding the game back. If you guys know what I mean. If you guys have played these games, you know what I mean. And not only that, what happened at the ending of this game, they basically bait a sequel, right? So in about 3 years, the sequel comes out, which Square Enix announced that it's going to be a trilogy and this is going to be the last one. So this one was called Lightning Returns Final Fantasy XIII, which you only get to play as Lightning. But same problem. Gameplay sucks, but the story and characters are good. Even though this was a slightly better game than the previous two, this game did actually fail because, well, the thing is that this game also came out at the end of the PS3 era, which everybody was gonna get a PS4, so nobody was gonna buy a lackluster game at this time. So I think that also added to the problem as well why the game failed. Now, this is why I'm saying is that a remake of these games is actually a lot better than remastering them, because it's the gameplay that is the problem. Now, Square Enix has had massive success with the Final Fantasy VII stuff, and these games are liked by fans. Now, I am not saying that Final Fantasy XIII needs to be remade like that, because those games are too big, and I don't think Final Fantasy XIII will suit that type of gameplay. But I really think that they should make the gameplay of Final Fantasy XIII more open zoned, kind of like the Tales of series, like Tales of Arise, for example. Open zoned where you can explore a town or a place. There is exploration, it's like basically big zones, if that makes sense. That's why I'm saying, because the original gameplay, you're only going from point A to point B and you can't explore anything. You know what I mean? That's why I'm saying a remake is way better than remastering these games. Because if they remaster these games, it's gonna turn into rubbish, especially now in our day and age. It's gonna be rubbish. So yeah, definitely they need to be remade, especially the gameplay. Now the story they don't have to touch, because the story is actually pretty good. The characters are all likable. The story's pretty good, like I mentioned. They don't have to touch all that. It's just the gameplay that needs to change. Like if they make it like open zone where you can explore a town, can explore an area, or they gotta also fix up the battle system. If they do that, then these games could turn out to be really good, far better than what they were. Like they can actually turn into a really good trilogy. It could be something good if they remake these games. Better remake them than remaster them. That's just my opinion. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Like and subscribe. I'll definitely do more videos on Final Fantasy. And yeah, thank you for watching.